disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So things got interesting on The Hill and the TV show Rising with Briahna Joy Gray and Robby Soave, or Robby Soave, as some people like to say. Because the mention of Israel storming into Rafah, the continuation of the genocide, continuation of changing the goalposts so frequently that we don't even know what's happening at this exact moment. You know, we were told that this is about October 7th and the hostages and defending and going against Hamas, but, you know, we just haven't figured out exactly which direction we need to go to defend people. In fact, we're not really defending anything at this point, which comes to known that with any manufactured war, it's not really defending anything except capital, which is kind of the goal of any of the wars that happen over the past 20 years, and Israel is no stranger to that. No stranger to that. But here's what happened. This was on the TV show Rising with Briahna Joy and Robby, and this conversation got a little interesting. Let's just say that.
So regardless of what you think, I understand, Robby, you're a human being that exists in the world and you're entitled to your perspectives. But frankly, I think it derails the conversation when we're not talking about whether or not the ICJ, which exists and which is a part of a body of international law and treaties that we subscribe to and that we are signatories to as in the United States of America, and which Israel is a signatory of the Genocide Convention. They have an...
So she's speaking on behalf of the fact that Israel is committing war crimes. This is indeed a genocide. This is by far in no definition of defensive war. This is not even warfare to begin with, because Palestinians are getting massacred and murdered every which way to Sunday without any retaliatory defense to it. So it's not really a back and forth warfare as most common wars are. This is just a complete massacre, a humanitarian disaster at foot, and international law would rule over the fact that Israel is committing war crimes. We have already seen reports coming out, the South African law that came out saying that Israel is indeed committing war crimes, and every country pretty much outside of the United States and parts of Canada, really, because Canada is flip-floppy on the whole thing, is certain that Israel is committing war crimes, that the Netanyahu regime are mass murdering thugs, just like our counterparts in the United States. It comes hand in hand. But watch the direction in which this goes.
So regardless of what you think, I understand, Robby, you're a human being that exists in the world and you're entitled to your perspectives. But frankly, I think it derails the conversation when we're not talking about whether or not the ICJ, which exists and which is a part of a body of international law and treaties that we subscribe to and that we are signatories to as in the United States of America, and which Israel is a signatory of the Genocide Convention. They have an obligation under the law not to be killing civilians the way that they're doing. And so the question is whether or not those organizations are going to hold them accountable, and whether or not the United States is going to follow its own law, like the lay law, which precludes us from giving money to...
Our obligation is the defense of...
countries that are committing war crimes.
The U.S. government's obligation is to the defense of its citizenry. That's true for Israel as well. And we're not going to international law ourselves into being able to stop terrorist groups that have attacked us.
Wait, what?
Exactly what I...
Oh my God. Oh my God. My God. Wow. Wow. That... Listen, I give respect to Briahna Joy Gray for holding her own and not reflecting emotionally, but wow. Wow. I mean, that exactly what you said. Like, wait, what? What? It's just, it goes to show, first of all, how brain dead a lot of people are. I know as a country, as citizens, over the past few years, we have become, how do I say, irony deficient, if you will. We've lost common sense. We lost all abilities to critically think. We have lost any sense of irony. And one of the biggest ironic thing is the United States hails itself as a law and order country. You know, you hear all the time that we got cracked down on crime, all the petty thugs that are on the streets that are shoplifting and stealing parts from your cars and doing property damage. We got to crack those people down, and we got to do everything that we can. Law and order, law and order. You hear that constantly about the streets of America. Yet, we don't preach law and order when it comes to foreign affairs. So, it's amazing that all it takes is for someone, you know, if you're a shoplifter, as long as you go and storm into a country and slaughter and massacre an entire village, then I guess you're off the hook. And more so, you're not just off the hook, you're probably going to get a reward for it by the military-industrial complex. How hysterical the United States really is. How backwards hysterical the United States is. It bounced itself on law and order and, you know, the ability of rules and ethics and how we need to, you know, stay in line, and we can't, you know, have people that are twisting the justice system for their own benefits. And yet here you are, because it's the state of Israel, twisting and bending ethics and violations to protect yourself or committing genocides. And it's not just Robby that does this. You know, Ben Shapiro, for example. Ben Shapiro, the classic trope of Ben Shapiro is he's always a rule follower. He's the ethics man. And, you know, you got to abide by law and order. You got to abide by, you know, the law enforcement. You got to abide by religious law. You got to abide by the book. And, you know, that was his notion. That's his morals. That's his credence on the way of life. Except when it comes to Israel. Except when it comes to one particular country. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to violate, you know, ethics and laws and morals, to just plow through cities and towns, destroying everything in sight, as long as we feel that it's good and defensible. Like, just imagine if this was any other country trying to pull this crap. Imagine, like, you know, they're still to this day trying to rope in Vladimir Putin and saying that he's the master war criminal for invading Ukraine. They're trying to rope him into the international court for violating his, you know, war pacts and ethics and being a war criminal. And yet here we are for the last 20 plus years doing nothing but war crimes. So, with that logic, Robby, should it be okay then for France to take over Spain? Should it be okay for Italy to start bombing Greece? Should it be okay if Canadians decide, hey, I feel like maybe we should just invade Alaska? Because international law is topsy-turvy and we don't abide to it. We just kind of subjugate it to our personal preference. Oh my God. Again, I give credit to Briahna Joy Gray for holding her own, because if I heard this, if I was in her shoes, I'd be having a heyday with them. I'd be like having a breakdown, because my brain just completely fried sitting next to that moron that's saying, you know, international law, whatever. The only thing that would make this better if Robby Soave dressed up in like Tony Soprano gear and did his worst Italian mobster impression, being like, we came in, you know, some people died, some people live. We gotta do what we gotta do. Capiche? Okay? You want to talk about law? I'll tell you about law. If you talk about law again, you'll be sleeping with the fishes. Oh my God. And of course, Briahna Joy Gray, like even Ilfrey, she's looking at him like, what the F are you talking about?
I just said.
Okay.
International law only constrains state actors from defeating terrorist groups when they're attacked. What good is
What are
international
you
law?
talking about? Why are you just saying that that's what international law does?
I'm saying we shouldn't. I'm saying this is why we're ignoring it.
No, it's not why we're ignoring it. We're ignoring it because, as our politicians have said repeatedly, they see Israel as a strategic advantage for us in the Middle East, and so we're willing to look the other way as they massacre tens of thousands of civilians with our tax dollars and with our bombs.
So he's basically, he's trying to defend this and saying like, oh, international law only applies to people that we feel are criminals, that we feel are violating the notions, the international notions that have all countries have agreed to, the peace treaties, the diplomacy that we as countries have cooperatively signed on. And we're just picking and choosing, okay, I feel like you're a criminal, but at the same time, you're not. Holy. Again, it's just, we are such an irony deficient, moronic, last brain cell class of people. I don't know what else I could say. Like, it shows how dumb people can get, how low people can get when they literally have no argument to stand on this, and they're just twisting words, and they can't even see that what they're saying is completely ironic to what she is saying, and the huge irony of the fact that the United States succeeds itself as being this law and order country, this democratic nation, and this, nation about peace and civility towards one another. And yet here we are trying to twist around the international court system because, laws don't apply to this. Ow. And again, imagine if other nations just decide to do this because, what's the point of international law? What's the point now? I mean, if we let international courts actually, confirm justice and actually look at this in coordinates and be rule followers and actually keep nations from committing more genocides, then I don't know, more terrorists will just appear like magic, like a Harry Potter spell. Terrorists appearance. I don't know. Oh my God. If Robby Soave was more up his own ass, he can do his own colonoscopy. Like, all it takes, you have a computer right there. Go do yourself a favor and go Google where Hamas originated. Where exactly did this terrorist group that committed the most massacring day, October 7th, and find out which government, and I'll give you a hint, it will give you a little bit of a surprise, Robby. Find out which government and which leader told their government that you had to fund this terrorist group in order for another nation to not have sovereignty. Because it's a very simple explanation. But Robby, much like Shapiro, much like any other APEC drooling lobby supporter, Mossad, just mouthpieces for the Israeli establishment and just being a complete tool for continuation of massacres, they don't care about logic. They don't care about facts. They don't care about rule of law. Again, they're trying to twist it as much as possible. Even though they're the same morons that will scream at the top of their lungs that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal, that he needs to be convicted of his war crimes. And yet here we are just allowing Israel to do whatever we want. International law doesn't matter at this point. Who cares? Who cares? But we scream at the top of the lungs to crack down on petty thugs. And like I said, maybe if shoplifters just invaded more countries, they can get away with their crimes. Because, what's the point of law at this point? Wow. What an interesting turn of events on TV's rising. I'll definitely say this. It definitely got more interesting once Crystal and Sagar left. Like, it definitely got more interesting with Briahna Joy Gray and Robby than it did with the many years of Crystal and Sagar that have now joined on to Breaking Points, which is now just a complete establishment handpicked tool. It looks like a, crafty YouTube show and has the production value, but you know where that production value is coming from. You know where those, money, the advertisement dollars that they're getting is coming from. It's just, what an interesting turn of events, ladies and gentlemen.